Hello, I am Dr. Tom Baez, Director of Counseling Services at UTSA. Today I'm going to talk to you briefly about powerful public speaking. It's a short, brief focus on how to deal with the anxieties and fears of public speaking as it might relate to your classroom experiences or presentations on campus. Public speaking is one of the widest commonly reported social anxieties that we face at college counseling centers across the country, and it impacts not only students but also faculty and staff. And so I will be talking to you a little bit about what those basic concepts are about public speaking anxiety that might help you. What are some basic strategies that you might be able to utilize to attempt to overcome this, and a short demonstration of an exercise that you might be able to utilize. As we look at the issue of anxiety and fears, a lot of times when we invite people to come over to address this topic of anxiety, there's a lot of fear. So a lot of times people don't show, and that's usually the first reaction of people when they think about needing to public speak, is to maybe I won't show up because then I won't be anxious. So what we're attempting to do here is to help you manage that a little bit better so that you can address those concerns directly. And when we think about public speaking anxiety or fears about speaking, we know that 13% of the population suffer from social anxiety. It's a large group of what's called social anxiety. It involves persistent fears of situations involving social interactions or social performance. The college experience can be stressful for socially anxious students, or if you might think about that being you're a graduate student or a professional, as it may be. Anxious students may experience restrictive socialization. In other words, that whole idea of, if I'm anxious about going to this large place because they may ask me to speak, I may not show up. So as a result, people kind of restrict themselves from doing so, from activities that you really otherwise would find very enjoyable or that would be good for you professionally. At times, students also avoid certain classes because they are required, there's a requirement to public speak in your classroom. Sometimes your faculty may ask you about doing a presentation at a conference, and if you're anxious and fearful of that, you may decide not to take that opportunity. Anxious students may narrowly restrict coursework to avoid public presentations. This may affect their grades. That's kind of what I just talked about in terms of your tendency to, or our tendency to avoid those situations that cause anxiety. And by not facing them, it reduces the anxiety, which really reinforces and makes the situation worse. Anxiety may lead to low self-esteem, depression, substance abuse, or dropout. Sometimes people think that having a little drink might help them to get through the presentation, but that's really not resolving the issue. It doesn't really help either. Graduate students are under close scrutiny and are required to teach, present research, and interview for highly competitive internships. So this is really an important skill that sometimes you come to college, you don't realize, or you maybe not aware of, that that's something that you may have some difficulty, maybe challenge. You might be very knowledgeable in your area of competence, but when you have to public speak, when you have to present to different audiences, it might be very difficult to do. Some symptoms of public speaking anxiety for college students include blanking out. You certainly forget everything you were thinking of talking about or had knowledge about. Fear or embarrassment. You may fear that somebody might laugh at you, or you might feel embarrassed if you don't come out speaking eloquently. You may tremble, sweating, clammy hands, increased heart rate, a shaky voice, a dry mouth, sometimes confusion, gastrointestinal problems, or dizziness. So some of these are symptoms that affect people individually. In other words, you might experience a few of these, another person, another friend of yours might experience something different. You might experience the trembling, the sweating, where somebody might experience more of the blanking out. So it's very situational, very specific to individuals. So the basic concepts in managing public anxiety include recognizing that anxiety and stress are normal. That's part of our daily lives. That stress can be appraised as eustressful or distressful. It's based on your perceptions. Something that you might look forward to, or something you might feel like it's more distressful. But it could be the same event. Somebody might really enjoy speaking to an audience and find it eustressful, invigorating, whereas somebody might find it more distressful. So it's very different for each individual. But this perception is the really important piece, which we'll talk further on. Stress is a whole mind-body experience. As I talked about some of the physical symptoms or some of the cognitive symptoms, it's a whole mind-body experience. When your mind thinks this is something that I can't do, or something that I don't do well, or this is something that I'm going to feel anxious about, your body will respond. Your body works together with your mind and therefore prepares for that situation. And an optimal level of stress can increase your performance. And sometimes we think about what would be the optimal. Well, sometimes if you don't have enough stress, you're not going to feel excited about doing something. If it's overwhelming, then it's not going to help you either. It interferes with your performance. So finding that optimal level of anxiety could be different for each person. So there are many things that you can do to prepare for that. People cope in maladaptive and adaptive ways. In other words, you could cope very adaptively by seeking help, reading about it, or talking to a friend, or kind of exposing yourself, putting yourself out there, attending Toastmasters or things like that will expose you to public speaking. Or you could respond maladaptively, which is to either drink alcohol to see if you can get through it, or to not show up. Those are probably not the ways that are going to help you in your development as a student, as a college professor, or a faculty or staff member. The goal is not to eliminate stress because, as I said before, it is normal, but it is to manage it. And some of the things that I'll be talking to you today is about how to manage it. You know, remember I said that it is important to have a certain level of anxiety and stress because it gets you going, it gets you thinking, gets you excited about what you're doing. But the important part is to reach what is the optimal level of stress. And sometimes you can reach that by gradually increasing the level of difficulty in terms of your experiences of public speaking. So sometimes it also is relating to kind of releasing, creating new roles. Your role perhaps as a passive student in the classroom to a more active student. So we all play many roles in our lives, parents, daughters and sons, friends, partners. There are different roles that we play, and we're kind of set up in those ways. In certain roles, we may act differently. These roles are learned and are culturally sanctioned, so that your culture might impact on what your role is in each one of these. Sometimes we get stuck in these old ways. I don't do that kind of thing. I don't do public speaking. But making those roles more explicit allows us to develop new ones, amplify and release those old ones. Being active in trying the roles keeps us growing. So I will be talking about specific techniques related to how to manage public speaking anxiety. The first one relates to challenging irrational thoughts. Remember I said that it's a relationship in the mind and body, and the mind involves this cognitive thinking, these self-perceptions about what we can do or not do, and how sometimes that could be in itself interference with your performance. We'll be talking about different methods of relaxation that you might be able to utilize. Imagery and mental rehearsal, where you imagine being at the stressful situation of public speaking, in the conference or speaking in your classroom, and imagine yourself going through all of that, relaxing, and then leaving with a smile. Rehearsing that video might be very important, might be very useful to you. Behavioral rehearsal is actually practicing with friends or partners of a speech that you might want to present. So all these are techniques that you can all do. but it requires you to really do them in practice so that your body gets used to that, your mind gets used to that, to do that kind of activity. As I talked before about roles that we get set, things that we get set up, that we do certain things in a certain way. If you set yourself up, if you set your body and mind to rehearse, to practice these relaxation techniques, you will find yourself to be more efficacious in your public speaking. First one, particularly changing thoughts that get in your way. Performance anxiety is a learned response with interactive physiological, behavioral, and cognitive components. So there are three components. One is the physiological, what your body experiences. One is the behavioral, that is what you do during the event or before the event or after the event. And the other is the cognitive, how you perceive the event, what thoughts you have about the event, what thoughts you have about how you might be able to do, your ability to do that. Challenging irrational thoughts can be used by all. Everybody can use a challenging their own self-irrational thoughts. But you might have to figure out what those are. You might have to write them down. Or it would be helpful to write those down and look at them and practice how you might change those to make them more efficacious, to make them more reasonable or rational. It emphasizes the effects of negative beliefs and prediction and the role of negative thoughts in heightening anxiety. In other words, if you have anxiety about something and you tell yourself, this is going to be terrible, this is going to be bad, it's going to heighten your anxiety, it's going to increase. So the negative beliefs and the prediction that something will go bad, and then those negative thoughts that accompany that really increases the anxiety and would interfere with your performance. So it is not the situations or the events which cause anxiety. It's not that public speaking performance. It's not speaking at the conference. It's not speaking in front of your dissertation committee. It's not speaking in class. It is the thoughts we have about situations that create and maintain this anxiety. The thought that you can't do this, the thought that you'd be embarrassed, the thought that you will forget, the thought that they're going to look negatively at you if you don't speak well. So the first step in changing is to catch these somatic thoughts, really recognizing what those are. What are things that I'm telling myself? Then ask yourself a question about the thoughts. Do I know for sure this will happen? Are there other explanations of what could happen? Is there any possibility? But we get stuck into, oh, I know I can't do this. It'll turn bad. I will be embarrassed. I will forget. Your objective thoughts are frequently more reasonable than your initial self-statements. They will result in more moderate, more pleasant state of mind. Even if those thoughts are true, does repeating them help to make you feel good or feel better about yourself? Does it help you do it better? Here's this one chart that I want you to look at and examine. And it's called an ABCD chart. It might be helpful to utilize to examine those thoughts. And A is, what is the activating situation? What is the event? B, what are your beliefs or thoughts, your perceptions about how you might do in that event? And C, what are the consequences? What are the symptoms that you experience? Are you blanking out? Are you trembling? Are you sweating? Those are consequences or symptoms. And D, the disputes that you will use to challenge those thoughts. This is another way to handle disputes. For example, you might say, do I know for certain that everybody will think negatively about me? That I know, will this really happen? How certain I am that this will happen? Am I really that? Am I 100% sure of these awful consequences? That people will laugh at me, that people will think less of me, that my faculty person might not include me in his project or her project anymore? What evidence do I have that those awful consequences will happen? Do I have a crystal ball? We really have a crystal ball to kind of read into the future? Can we really tell what's going to happen? What is the worst thing that could happen? How bad is that? Could there be any other explanations? What is the likelihood that I will forget? So those are things that you might be able to utilize to challenge or dispute those self-perceptions or automatic thoughts that you might think about. And the last one there is public speaking really so important that my entire future resides with this outcome? Is it really? Look at your grades for your classes. Is 80% of your class grade based on public speaking? Probably not, unless that's what you're doing. That is your training to become a public speaker. But it's unlikely that that would happen. So your grades really are not going to be determined by your public speaking performance. Here's a way to, one that I filled out the blanks, for example. The activating event. Speaking to a large audience of professionals, my advisor is present. That's the activating event. Then one would think that the C consequences might be the blushing, the trembling, stuttering, stomach ache, mind blanking, sweating, heart pounding. All these awful consequences that we expect will happen and may happen. But why do they happen? We believe it's because of the beliefs. The beliefs that are related to irrational thoughts that you might have. For example, they will know that I am nervous. Well, how will they know that? How will they know? Is the dispute for that? How bad is that? You might say, so what? Is it really catastrophic that they know I'm nervous? In fact, some people might feel more empathic about you. They will see me blushing. Well, how do you really know that? Have you asked people? Will you go around and ask people if they've seen you blushing? A lot of times people might assume that and they go ask around and people don't notice. Why? Because they're all thinking about their next time to talk or what they're going to say as well. It would be terrible if I make a mistake. They will think I don't know anything about what I'm talking about. Again, that relates to what we call all or nothing thinking. It's all right or all bad. If they make me ask questions, I won't be able to respond and they'll think I'm a loser. Well, do I know for certain that that will happen? Do I have a crystal ball? My advisor will be critical and may think I don't belong here. Well, are you mind reading? Can you tell what that professor is going to think? Or that advisor is going to think of you? Can you really read their minds? Probably not. So the alternative is you dispute these irrational thoughts, because the more you dispute them and challenge them, the less intensity they will have. And as you begin to prepare to present, they won't be as strong in your mind and your thinking. The mind will always think them, but you can decrease the intensity of those by challenging them. Some basic strategies relate to preparing. Certainly, if you're going to go into a public speaking presentation of a class or conference, you must prepare. You must be prepared. If you don't know your information, what are you going to speak about? You may be able to not be anxious, but how successful is that going to be if you haven't prepared? The next one is to relax. Certainly you're prepared, but you need to set your mind and your body to relax prior, during, and after the experience. Externalize. Take it out. Talk to people. Talk to friends. Verbalize your irrational thoughts. Check those out. Bring those out. Stay positive. It's not really the end of the world. It is not a catastrophe. But if you think it will, then your body will respond as if it was a catastrophe, and your body will set up physiologically to get out of the situation. What we call the fight or flight response. Single-minded, keep the focus on one thing, not a tremendous amount of all the other things that you need to do at once. Unite. Gather with others. You may do it with other friends or talk with other people. Some people attend Toastmasters. I think it would be important to perhaps get yourself to a point where you feel a little bit more comfortable about being able to public speak, and then go and kind of fine-tune your skills if you would like to, like a Toastmasters group. reevaluate. After you've done the event, after you've done your preparation, your relaxation, and all these skills, and you've practiced them, kind of reevaluate. How did that go? What got in the way? What do I need to do differently next time? You may speak with your professor, your advisor, or somebody in the group that heard your presentation and get some ideas. But reevaluate afterwards. And then extend yourself. Get yourself into positions where you have to public speak. Volunteer for activities which involve public speaking. Volunteer to do presentations in classrooms. Push yourself to raise your hand in the classroom 3 times or 1 time. Begin with whatever you're comfortable with, but begin by putting yourself out there. People that, for example, if you're preparing to teach, when you first teach is always very anxiety provoking. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get. The more comfortable your body gets, and the better you feel about yourself because you're able to do it. So final thoughts. We're all capable of climbing so much higher than we usually permit ourselves to, by Tavia Butler. So what I wanted to do is I've talked about some basic concept of public speaking anxiety. And what I want to do is a little demonstration about one skill that you might be able to utilize, which is relaxation. And I'm going to move to my side to sit down and show you, take you through those exercises. So first of all, when we're doing relaxation, we want to really set up the environment. You want to make sure you dim the lights if possible. You want to sit in a relaxing chair, as comfortable as you might be available to get. You want to relax your clothing a little bit. So if you have a tie, you might loosen it up. Loosen up anything tight in your clothes. And you don't want to have your legs crossed. You want your body circulation to flow. And so what I'm going to do is take you through a kind of 2 or 3 variety of exercises you can do with breathing relaxation, which you can do anywhere, in any place, at any time that you have. For example, you're waiting in line, you could do it standing. You could be sitting in the classroom or taking a break or taking a walk, and you might be able to relax as well. But the important piece about this is that you practice it often, that you practice it daily, and you kind of get yourself a sense of how effective is it for you. If this relaxation exercise helps you on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you think would be at? So that as you practice it, and if you feel like 8 or 9 or 7, and you feel, well, this one is really helpful, I'm going to continue doing that. But you need to continue doing it daily, because once you stop, then your body will stop relaxing, right? So you got to get your body used to doing this kind of exercise. So every time you need to, you can access that ability to relax quickly or by practicing it daily. So the first thing I want you to do is you would begin to think about how you breathe. You want to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth like this. So you take 1 full breath of air in through your nose, filling up all your lungs, letting it out slowly. One way to look at that is to put one hand above your chest and one hand on your tummy and breathe in. And the idea is to get you to take enough breath in so it reaches your tummy. So it fills all your lungs with air, oxygen that you need to be able to function, to be able to speak. You need to access oxygen. A lot of times when people are stressed, they tend to breathe more shallow. So the idea of getting your body used to increasing the oxygen into your body so that your brain has the ability to function and you don't lose your train of thought. So I'll try one more time. So as you're breathing in and you're releasing out through your mouth, you release slowly and gently, pushing it out. This time what I'd like you to do is take in to the count of 3, hold it to the count of 3, and release it to the count of 3. When you continue to do that for a period of 3 to 5 minutes, sometimes it's helpful to close your eyes or to focus on a spot on the ceiling where you might be able to keep your focus on. Another alternative to do all that is that while you're relaxing, you might be able to tighten all your muscles from your toes all the way up to your head, like this. And then you relax them slowly and gently. For some individuals, tightening and releasing is more effective than just the normal breathing. So practice either one and see which one is more effective for you. You might add music in the background. You might purchase some CDs that are relaxing music, or even relaxation CDs that are available in the market. So, but the idea is just to test them, to try to see what works best for you, and to continuously practice. So all those skills put together will really help you to kind of reduce the anxiety about public speaking. If you would like to hear more about public speaking anxiety and would run to reach the counseling center, we're located in our main campus on the Rec Wellness Center and in downtown on our West Durango building. And we're also accessible to our phone numbers and our webpage that's written there. I wish you luck, but call us if you need to, and we'll continue to work with you. Thank you.